on the website. And tonight I'm joined with GA Fan TV host and creator, Mr. Aaron Prendergast, and GA Statsman, Mr. Matthew Hurley. Talk about last weekend's championship action, and of course this weekend's championship action. It's absolutely boiling still. I am about to melt. Mr. Prendergast was in the middle of talking about something there. Finish your sentence, Mr. Prendergast. What are we saying?
Yeah, it was just about the Celtic manager, Angie Postecoglou, or however you actually say his name. I suppose Kev can maybe can maybe finish what I was saying. Like, I mean, will he work at Tottenham? I don't know if he will, to be honest with you. But look, sure, we're not here to talk about that anyway. We're here to talk about the lovely Gaelic football, and by God, we certainly have a lot of games to run through. So I won't waste my time talking any more gibberish than I normally do.
Great. So how are you, my man? Any crack?
I'm good. Yeah, keeping well. Some good games at the weekend. Good win for Dublin, in fairness. 9-point win against Kildare. So like that's always a positive. Was at the Mead and Down game in Parnell Park on Saturday afternoon, and to be honest with you, at half time, I was kind of thinking, should I just leg it? Should I just pull a runner here, because this is not a great game at all. It was a very, very poor game, to be honest with you. I think the most exciting thing were the Mead fans going mental down by the sideline. A lot of them were going a little bit crazy and getting really sort of revved up into the game towards the end of it. But yeah, like some good results, some good talking points there. Tyrone, I'm sure, will definitely be a talking point. Some other good games, like Mayo obviously barely got over the line against Louth, and same for Kerry and Cork. And I'm sure Matthew will obviously have a lot to say about the penalty incident as well. So definitely a lot to discuss.
Before we crack on, Ange Postecoglou. Is it Postecoglou? Well, what is it, Matthew? You'd know.
I wouldn't know, John, but all I do know is he can't beat St. Mirren, the mighty St. Mirren. So I don't think he'll succeed at Tottenham for that reason. Although St. Mirren are a decent side themselves, got 2 Australians in the squad there. So big up the Saints. They unfortunately didn't get Europe, but that's for another day. But the GA is back. The GA is in the summer now, and brilliant action at the weekend. And unlike Aaron going to an absolutely terrible game, I went to a good game in Cork and Kerry. So all good.
That's big you, Aaron. I wouldn't take that.
yeah. But in fairness, like, probably serves me right. I should have went to the Dublin Kildare game. Like,
what notion did you take to go to the Down game?
I don't know, because there was so many games on. I didn't want to miss the Armagh Tyrone match, and I knew I would have missed that if I had have gone to the Dublin Kildare game. Now, as it turns out, I missed the Armagh Tyrone game anyway because I went to the pub. So it was actually, I probably should have went now in hindsight, but at the same time, it was like I bought the ticket at about 11 o'clock on Saturday. Like, I bought it like about 2 hours before throw in. I was just like, should I go? Should I? I was like, I might as well just go, because I'm going to watch the game on GA Go anyway. So I was like, might as well just go for the crack. I think the ticket was like 15 quid. Obviously not ideal, obviously. Definitely €15 I'd love to have back now. But at the same time, good experience, seeing a low level Tailteann Cup game. Hopefully the last one I'll get to see.
Ooh, low level. The grass isn't always greener, big man. The grass is not always greener. Mr. Hurley, how are you? All's good?
Yeah, all's good. Yeah, like going to the Cork and Kerry game at the weekend, it was a very good experience. And watching the games on Sunday, Mayo Louth and Derry and Donegal, very good as well. And looking forward to getting into the action as well. And Aaron mentioned low-level Tailteann Cup game as well. Joe Brawley said Cork were an awful team. So what would that make the Tailteann Cup teams?
Yeah, I tell you what, I plead the fifth on that one.
Low level Tailteann Cup. Oh my God! Don't know, Mr. Prendergast. You get very cranky.
Lower level, maybe is what I meant to say, but it is one of it's the lowest level senior Gaelic football competition. If we're talking about it statistically, there is only 2 competitions, so you would have to say it is low. And considering the way the game was, it was definitely the lowest of levels, in my opinion. But hopefully, Cavan and Antrim in the final, like that'll be high level.
100%.
Don't forget.
Yeah, he's saved his bacon there. He has saved his bacon. Make no doubt about it. Good stuff, lads. You are both in great form. That's always a key part of life. And we'll crack on with the action, bit of housekeeping as usual to take care of before we get into the action. The GAA football team of the week this week was Mr. Niall Morgan in between the sticks. Full back line of Michael McKernan, Paul O'Hora and Bevan Duffy. a half back line of Conor Doherty, Cian Herndon and Stephen Cohen. And then a midfield of Peter Cook and Enda Smith. And then a half forward line of Colin Basquel, Paul Cassidy, Mike Donnelly, not a bad half forward line. Full forward line of Jack McCarron, David Clifford and Oisin Gallen. And that's a sensational full forward line. Oisin Gallen, we'll talk about him in a few minutes. He had a remarkable game at the weekend there. He was brilliant for Donegal, man of the match by quite some distance, and they did not get over the line. How it is hard to believe. Then footballer of the week nominees are Jack McCarron of Monaghan, David Clifford of Kerry. That Clifford fella's good, if you've ever heard of him, lads. And then Enda Smith of Roscommon. And then the Tailteann Cup team of the week was Michael O'Reilly between the sticks, full back line of Shane O'Connell, Mikey Bamrick and Calvin Spork Faulkner, half back line of Glenn Malone, Donald Cogan and Mark Kenny, and then a midfield of Dean Healy, Liam Gallagher, not Liam Gallagher from Oasis. Liam Gallagher's London, so maybe Liam was playing at the weekend. Who knows? Half forward line of Dara Rooney, Jack Kennedy, and then Adam Loughran, and then a full forward line of Brandon Boylan. Great stuff for Brandon. Obviously, good crush it all, man. There, be delighted with that. Full forward, Paul Kingston, and then Meads Jordan Marr. So it's a pretty good full forward line if you get your hands on it. Lots to take in there, lads.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's a good two good teams. In fairness, I suppose the first team, like as you said there, like Oisin Gallen, exceptional week. Possibly could have been nominated for Player of the Week as well. I know he was obviously on the losing side for Donegal, but he was definitely in the conversation. But like there was so like it was kind of because there was so many games. Like you're talking about 16 games in the All Ireland Championship, 16 games in the Tailteann Cup. Very hard to probably fit everyone in. As you said there, like definitely a lot of good players like Jack McCarron, very, very good player in fairness. I think he scored 8 points from play. He had a very, very good week.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, two very strong teams.
Jack McCarron was brilliant against Clare. Obviously, the Clare game was on the Sunday game at the weekend, and it was a great game of football there in Clones, I have to say. Mr. Hurley, you know, there's a lot to get through there, but general or kind of brief thoughts and all that.
Yeah, I definitely concur with Aaron. Like there was a lot of games at the weekend and kind of hard for players to come in. Like on any other week, probably Brian O'Driscoll from Cork would be in with show. But when you look at the half forward line in Donnelly, Basquel, Cassidy scored 4 points from play and didn't even get man of the match, which tells you all you need to know about the quality of Derry and Donegal in a way. Matty Donnelly was brilliant. Colin Basquel scoring 5 points against Kildare was outstanding. You have to give Player of the Week to Jack McCarron though. 8 points from play is outstanding. Like I actually had some journalists actually get on to me to ask me the question: is that the most that a player's got from play, most scores that any player's got from play this season? And I looked through it, like in terms of overall, like match or two, Tierney got 2-5 against Sligo, but that's 11 points, but that's 7 scores to 8. I'm trying to think. No, I think that's the most scores from play by any player this season, which is an incredible achievement from Jack McCarron. He's got 11 points now, taking his tally up to that overall. So, and we all knew he had an excellent quality. And you look at David Clifford there, 1-5, 1-3 in the second half. When you consider Kerry scored, I think it was Kerry scored 1-5 in the second half, and Clifford scored 1-3 of that, which tells you all you need to know. I think his back would be absolutely in pain after carrying Kerry in that second half anyway. But, you know, it tells you all you need to know what a player he is. And I'd say he'll have a fair bit of an injury before the Low game anyway. But yeah, good team. Nominees for Player of the Week. Although Oisin Gallen probably should have got in there. 9 points is an outstanding tally. But then again, you couldn't argue against any of the players that got nominated for Player of the Week in a way.
Yeah, I think there's some remarkable candidates. Yeah, and obviously, like we'll talk about it in a couple of seconds, and I think some lads were talking in the group chat earlier on about it. But Kerry at the minute, lads, like you have to really say they are quite ordinary. I know obviously Dave Clifford's the player of our times at the minute, but they are very ordinary without him at the minute. I know with him at the minute they're unreal, but if that man gets injured, where are Kerry at, Mr. Prendergast?
Yeah, I think they could be in a lot of trouble. In fairness, like I mean, Sean O'Shea, like in the first half was very good, scored 5 points, and a very exceptional performance, obviously from him in the first half. But then in the second half, he was next to non-existent. Like you nearly forgot he was even on the pitch at times. And it's very unusual for Kerry because like last year we talked about them as a team that had obviously David Clifford, but they had a lot of depth as well. Like Killian Spillane was coming off the bench, Adrian Spillane. Micheál Burns. Like, they had a lot of very, very good options and players who could come on and change the game. Whereas now, I don't know what it is. Like, I feel like maybe some of the players like Stephen O'Brien, Paul Gainey, in fairness, Gainey was actually very good at the weekend, but like a lot of these lads around a long time. And like Kerry have had a good amount of sort of under 20 teams the last couple of seasons. There's plenty of players there that could maybe make the step up and sort of make an impact sort of as an impact sub. But yeah, there does seem to be a huge over-reliance on David Clifford at the minute. And like, that's all good and well when you're playing, you know, Cork and everyone else. But when you're playing one of the top contenders like a Galway, if Dublin are there, we'll see. But, you know, Tyrone, these type of teams like Derry, like, that would be tough. Do you know what I mean? Because if a team can, it's almost at the stage now where you can put two men on Clifford, and if you can keep him quiet, that's your first job towards stopping Kerry. And it is unusual because we wouldn't have said that last season, but Sean O'Shea's been inconsistent. Paddy Clifford's, I suppose, more of a creator. Like, he's not going to be the man to score you, 7-8 points in a game, in fairness. So yeah, worrying signs for Kerry. And I think another worrying part is their midfield. I think their midfield is very, very ordinary, to be honest with you. And I think we saw that, like, Cork bullied their midfield. And you could argue there's probably 7, 8, 9 counties in the country who probably have a better midfield than Kerry at the minute.
Yeah, not too much. I suppose the loss of David Moore, and this was probably going to be the natural progression after that. And obviously, he's a huge loss, that Kerry team, such a leader over the years. So he's going to be a huge loss for the years ahead, Mr. Hardy.
He is, yeah. And I was thinking before the game, actually, that I knew Kerry would probably win it because they're probably a better, technical team than Cork at the moment, unfortunately, from my point of view. But I suggested in Southern Star or my podcast during the week and stuff like that midfield was the area that Cork needed to get at, because we have two midfielders in Colin Buchanan and Ian Maguire and Killian O'Hanlon and Rory Dean, to be fair, that will bully the Kerry midfield. Like Jack Barry, I don't think, no offence to Jack Barry and Dermot O'Connor, no, but are they top midfielders that would be up there with the likes of Brian Fenton, with the likes of Paul Conroy, with the likes of Dermot O'Connor, Matty Ruan, even Con Kilpatrick or Tyrone? Them players wouldn't be up in the them. That's the honest truth about Kerry at the moment. And a lot of Kerry fans were saying that David Moore needed to move on last year, and I was saying, hold up, lads. Like, he was the most consistent Kerry player over the last few seasons. He was probably the best high fielder in the Kerry team, and Kerry have just lost that spark in midfield over the last few years. They've no pace. They've no willingness to win the ball either. And this was against a Cork team that are Division 2 standard, let's be honest here. So, like, Kerry were very, very poor on the kick. Like, I don't actually remember the last time Cork had a 100% kick-out retention. That's incredible, really, when you think about it. But I know Cork deserves some credit for that. But Kerry have to be taken into account as well. Their midfield is so weak at the moment. And when you look at Louth in the next few weeks, who Kerry's next opponents in Portlaoise, Dave Conor Early and Tommy Durnan in midfield. If James Califf, gets the ball to them from his own kick-out, Tommy Durnan and Conor Early could make hay there. And even from Shane Ryan's kick-outs, if Louth just push up on Kerry's kick-outs, James Califf, notoriously comes up from the back to go up to midfield. He'll catch it over Dermot O'Connor and Jack Barry, in my opinion, as well. So I think Kerry are going to badly struggle in midfield against Louth. And let's not forget, like, Louth really tested Mayo to the pin, O'Connor. Why can't they test Kerry? And when especially Mayo beat this Kerry team by 5 points, So I'm telling you, I know Louth could be seen as a bit of an underdog, but Louth could challenge Kerry in the next few weeks, and it's a bit of a worrying sign for Jack O'Connor and his team.
Yeah, absolutely. The early form with Kerry lads is, I know they got the win at the weekend, but early signs are definitely not good. I know, obviously, only for Mr. David Clifford at the minute, things do not look too rosy in the garden, but we'll wait and see as the weeks go on, and then we'll crack into the action, lads, on Saturday in the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship Round 2 in O'Neill's Healy Park. It was Tyrone 13 points, Armagh 11 points. I suppose if you're talking points around this game, lads, obviously the sending off of Rian O'Neill, and been seeing a few bits and pieces since the sending off. I think it was Oshie McConville came out and said, like, the ref needs to kind of look after the more important players or the bigger players. That just, we frankly thought it was a bit ridiculous. But the game itself, Mr. Prendergast, not one for the ages.
No, it definitely wasn't. Like, I think it was 8 points to 4 after about 53 minutes. Like, it was a very poor game of football. Like, it was overly tactical. It was tippy tappa football, like just playing it from side to side. There was no real urgency, and yeah, like the red card was huge. Like, the red card was definitely obviously a huge moment in the game. Like, it's hard to actually fully get an actual full replay of it, but when you kind of do see the replay, and when we hear the general consensus that obviously his knee was on his head, like I think it is a blatant red. Like, you can't have any complaints or anything about it. So yeah, like I think like Armagh done well to get back into the game. I felt they done well to keep the game somewhat alive, like considering they were down to 14 men and without one of their best players in Rian O'Neill. And like, yeah, like for Tyrone, like Tyrone would be happy with the victory, but I think Tyrone nearly threw that game away, and that would be a bit of a worry at the same time. But Darren McCurry, like very, very good performance from him. Dara Canavan, I thought, was impressive as well. Peter Hart obviously nearly got a goal. He was unlucky hitting the post. And yeah, I think for Armagh, like, it's going to be tough for them now because they need a result against Galway. If they don't get a result against Galway, they're going to finish third in the group, and then you're looking at some of the potential teams who might end up finishing second that they could play. It's going. I don't know. I think for Armagh, like even getting to an All-Ireland quarter final might be difficult for them now, to be honest.
I suppose I was talking to Matthew off air, Aaron, just before you jumped on, and I kind of don't want to kind of keep kind of getting it, maybe Armagh or whatever, but I just think that should they have targeted that game a bit maybe more than Tyrone, just to kind of get a bit of, like, I know they did just get over the line against Westmeath, but should Armagh have been targeting the win there at the weekend, and I suppose just get a bit of morale and confidence back after getting bet in that Ulster final?
I think so, yeah. Like I think the problem with Armagh is that, like, last season they were very attacking. They were on the front foot. You seen them against Galway. It was very chaotic style football. Now they conceded a lot because of it, and they were shipping in a lot of goals. But like when they go at teams and when they attack teams, like they have the ability to put any team to bed. Like we seen what they did against Dublin last year in the opening day of the league. Like, I know it was the opening day of the league, and maybe Dublin weren't at it, but Armagh could have beat Dublin by 10 or 15 points that day. Like, they were really, really good. And like at times this year in the league and even in the championship, they seem to be overly cautious, like keeping the ball for too long, not taking enough risks, not taking enough chances, and their game management is really poor as well. Like, I think we talked about it after the Ulster final. Ethan Rafferty, obviously with his kick out sort of towards the end of the game and extra time, keeps going long time and time again, doesn't want to mix it up, and their indiscipline is just really poor as well. Like, they keep getting players sent off, like Rian O'Neill getting sent off, seem to constantly be getting involved in brawls. Like, I don't think there's much composure in this Armagh side. Like, they seem to just lose the run of themselves, and I don't know whether that, like you always kind of have to look at the management and think, like, why is no one putting a lid on this? You'd wonder, are players even like getting punished, or like, is there, do you know what I mean? Because the same things keep happening, and it is costing Armagh.
Yeah, I suppose I made this point to Matthew there last week, and I know obviously Matthew, you did make a strong case for Kieran McGee, and you maybe give him a bit more time, but like, I just don't know. Like, and I keep kind of saying to Johnny Myrtle, I'll get through the man someday, but like, is it just maybe a case of bringing a new man in and just freshening things up a bit and getting the full potential out of, like, Kieran McGee? He has done his service, but I just think, is it a time for a change in McGard, Mr. Renegast?
I think a lot will depend on the next two games, to be honest with you. Like, I think if they don't get to an All-Ireland quarter final, you'd have to say, like, it's been a very poor season for Armagh, because they got relegated and they didn't even get to an All-Ireland quarter final. Now, you could look at it and say, well, look, they done very well in the Ulster Championship. Like, they obviously beat yourselves, Cavan, and yous weren't at the races at all that day. Down just aren't at it, in all honesty, a poor enough team. And then against Derry, they done well against Derry, but one great performance doesn't excuse the rest of the season. So I think a lot will depend, to be honest with you, on the next two games, the Galway game and then the match after that. I think context is everything, and I think it will depend on, who they get beat by, or what happens, or whatever. But yeah, like, you could argue that, maybe there is a changing in the guard, and in fairness, there, Armagh aren't short of candidates. Like, there's an Ushi McConville knocking around, Tony McEntee, like, there's lads around there that, like, would probably take that job. And McGeady has been there a long time as well, in fairness. Do you know what I mean? So, like, I think in fairness to McGeaney, he has done a great job with Armagh, but it's like anything. Like, sometimes things run their course, and at the end of the day, you know, they probably got a bit of a golden generation of players, and are they getting the best out of it? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Mr. Prendergast. I think that's all we can really say with that particular game on Saturday night. It just wasn't really. We'll move on swiftly from it. In the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship Round 2 in TG Cusack Park, it was Galway 20 points, Westmeath 12 points, 8-point win for Galway, Mr. Hurley, showing good signs of potentially winning Sam Maguire. Good 8-point win against a Westmeath team that were moving quite well up until.
Yeah, definitely. Like Westmeath performed very, very well in fairness up until obviously the Canadian red card. Like, it was a second yellow card. Yeah, you probably have to give it when you look at the decision back. Like, it was a tough call at Westmeath, who did very well up until a few stages in the game. Like, I remember Shane Walsh dropping a ball short, Westmeath go down the other end and scored. That was the epitome of the first half, and Westmeath dominated Galway really in large parts of it. I know they had the wind in the first half, but they definitely show Galway all their worth. But as you said there, the breaking in and sending off, and things start to fall apart then. But Peter Cook had a brilliant performance with 4 points. Damien Comer, I think, came off the bench and got 3 points. Johnny Heaney, very good. Keane Hernan. Shane Walsh apparently was limping in this game again. So that's a very, very worrying sign from a Galway point of view. I'm just hearing this from Galway fans around Twitter and Instagram or whatever. So maybe not the best source of information there, but at the same time, it is kind of worrying about Shane Walsh's form, because I think he's only performed in really one game this year in the championship against Tyrone, if you count that. But Galway, the thing is with Galway, actually, like, Kerry performed poorly this weekend, won by 2 points. Mayo performed poorly, won by 1 point. Galway performed poorly, and they win by 8. And that's probably the difference between the three sides at the moment. And Galway are very, very consistent. They're cooking nicely, and they look good ahead of the Armagh game now, and look good to top the group, in fairness to them. And Pádraig Joyce is doing an excellent job at Galway at the moment. Connacht title, All-Ireland final, and they're the favourites for the All-Ireland, and I wouldn't put it past them to win it this season for the first time since 2001.
No, that was a great result. Obviously, at the weekend against the Westmeath, a team that moved very, very well against Armagh. And I suppose, like, Galway definitely are picking up momentum at the right time, and they are a lot of people's candidates to, I suppose, win Sam this year. And I suppose, have we seen kind of big signs yet of proper All-Ireland contenders, Mr. Hurley?
I think we have. And I said this point earlier as well, they performed very poorly, but they still won by 8 points. And it was the same kind of situation against Tyrone. They performed poorly, they win by 3 points. Against Roscommon, they weren't particularly at their very, very best, and still won by a handy margin in the end there too. So the Galway seem to be going on very, very nicely. And even when they're performing poorly, you think there's still another bit of gears in them. And you just don't see that with the other teams at the moment. You look at Kerry, you don't. Dublin, well, Aaron will give his opinions later, but I was hearing on his podcast yesterday that Conor O'Callaghan could be out, and that is a huge loss for Dublin. And if that's the case, Galway have the upper hand on Dublin at the moment. Mayo look very, very inconsistent. But then again, Dermot O'Connor was missing yesterday, or on Sunday rather, so we don't know what's their best showing in particular in a big game. Tyrone, I still think are a dangerous team, but you have to look at Galway at the moment and think they're the front runners for the All-Ireland. When you look at the players they have, like Damien Comer didn't even start on Saturday, I don't think. Robert Finnerty, I think, started, but he didn't start in the previous games, and he's an exceptional player. Shane Walsh, Tom O'Callaghan, Matthew Tierney, Paul Conroy, Killy McDay, John Maher. Like, the list of names just roll off the tongue nicely for Galway at the moment. They look really, really good. Like, defensively and offensively, they look probably the best team in the country at the moment. The only worry I'd have about them, and I said this about them last year, is probably the goalkeeper. Personally, I'd rather burn a power goal instead of Conor Gleeson. I just think there's a mistake in him. But if they have power on goal for the rest of the campaign, I think Galway are the team to beat. They definitely are the team to beat, and Pádraig Joyce seems to be going along nicely with them. And let's not forget, like, early on in Pádraig Joyce's tenure, a lot of Galway fans wanted him out. And look at them now. They're All-Ireland contenders for a reason. They're motoring along nicely.
And obviously, Matthew, like I know it's a while ago now, but I think it was Galway were flying before the lockdown, and we can always remember that. We remember that time, and the team on form. I suppose All-Ireland final last year, picking up form at the right time now. So things are looking fairly rosy in the garden, but it's about when you get inside a Croke Park and what you do after them white lines. So we'll move on to UPMC Nolan Park. It was Dublin 22 points, Kildare 13 points. Bit of slagging going into this one, Mr. Prendergast. Glenn Ryan, nothing to give out about this time.
No, I don't think so. He couldn't talk about the black and amber seats or the fact that Kildare, I suppose, had maybe never played football in Nolan Park, and was hearing maybe the weather was a bit too hot in Kilkenny as opposed to what it would usually be in Kildare. Yeah. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. Like, to be fair, I haven't seen his interview after the game. I don't even know if he did give any interviews. To be honest, I think he probably just said, you know what, I think it's best to keep my mouth closed maybe this time. Yeah. But yeah, no. Look, from a Dublin perspective, it was a great win. I suppose it's more like when Dublin usually play Kildare in the last sort of 10 years. In fairness, and like who knew to take us out of Croke Park would actually lead us to performing better against Kildare than we did in the last two games against Kildare. But yeah, it was a good performance. Like, in fairness, like I think we mentioned Colin Basquel in the team of the week. I think that was great to see, because I think he's a player who's looked very good at club level for a while for Ballybowden, and it's never really clicked for him in a Dublin shirt. But like he was very good performance from him. Sean Bugler, I thought, again had another great game. Like, he was brilliant versus Louth a couple of weeks ago. Dean Rock, in fairness to him, you know, like gets his start, and he was working really hard. Like, he was tracking back, he was defending, and really trying to stake his claim to come into the side. Con O'Callaghan in the first half was unplayable. I felt it looked like the best version of Con we've maybe seen in the championship this year. And yeah, like Kildare, in fairness, like they stuck with Dublin in the first half. It was a very entertaining, like, opening 20 minutes. I think it was like 7-6 at one stage. And both sides were just going back and forth, man to man. It was just a classic sort of throwback nearly to the Dublin Kildare classics of the 2000s. But once Dublin pulled away and built up a 4 to 5 point lead, I felt like Kildare's heads just kind of went after that. Like they started, their shooting became poor. They weren't playing with the same energy, and it just felt like the game was over then after about probably 30 or 40 minutes. And in fairness, look, for Dublin, it's a weird one with Dublin, because we can be brilliant one week and then we go out the next week and we're absolutely terrible. Like, so you just don't really know what you're going to get with Dublin. There seems to be no in between. We seem to be really good or really bad. And I suppose we won't really learn a huge amount about Dublin until probably an All-Ireland quarter final. I think that's going to be the big one, I think.
You know, some chat earlier on, and I was just thinking to myself, like, I know I was watching the game live on GAGO, and I was thinking to myself, like it's weird. Like, Dublin obviously got the great win, and they won the game by a comfortable margin. But and it's funny, maybe it's the standard we've set about Dublin in our own heads. But do you think, like, from what me coming away from it, I don't think Dublin played overly well, and I don't know, is that it's probably a bit of a mad thing to say, but like, do you think they played well, Aaron? If you get me.
I thought we did play well, in fairness. Like, I think in the second half there was elements in the second half, at the start of the second half, where there was a slight bit of sloppiness. Like, I remember a few wides. Like, it wasn't the Dublin of 5-6 years ago where we'd beat Kildare by 15 to 20 points. But in comparison to what we've seen against Kildare a couple of weeks ago, and in comparison to the Roscommon game as well, like, we were attacking, like we were playing like how Gaelic football should be played. Like, against Roscommon, it was too much sideways hand pass and not taking any risks, no confidence in ourselves. Whereas in this game, there seemed to be more of that. Like, it seemed like Dublin were taking Kildare on. We were taking risks, taking chances. And I thought it was good. Look, Kildare were very poor in the second half. In fairness, first half they were all right. Second half they were very poor. And again, it's one of them where at the end of the day, Kildare were, they drew with Sligo a few weeks ago. They've barely stayed up in Division 2. It's a hard one to read into, because, another team, as we've seen with Roscommon, like, Roscommon probably weren't at their best either, and probably should have beat us. So you can't really take too much from this game, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. not a whole pile again. Yeah, a lot of these group stages games, it's not a whole pile you can get away from. But a good win for Dublin nonetheless, and blow off the Corks, and they definitely would have been happy with that. Make no doubt about it. And then we'll move on to action that took place in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. It was Kerry 114, Cork 15 points. Oh, 2-point loss, Mr. Hurley. Not far away, but you know the gap isn't as bad as everyone thought it was going to be.
Yeah, except for Joe Brawley, who called Cork an awful team after the game on his column on the Independent. I'm sure he'd read it till you die, lads. Yeah, I remember what he said about Mayo. Like, geez, it's kind of like he'd say something about a team. It's kind of like he doesn't criticise. He criticises every team in the country except for Dublin and Derry. But that's just the way Joe Brawley is at the moment. But enough about him and more about the game. But in fairness to Cork, I was delighted with the performance. I was really, the lads did brilliant in fairness to them. The midfield was brilliant, as I mentioned at the start of the show. Colm O'Callaghan, Ian Maguire, Rory Dean, Killian O'Hanlon around the middle were brilliant. I think the thing that let us down was the first half shooting. I think we scored 5 points and we had 10 shots, which wasn't really good enough against Kerry. Like, there was one of them, Kevin O'Donovan ballooned it into the air, and it was it looked pretty bad from a Cork point of view. But then in the second half, we started going at Kerry and we found joy, basically. That was the thing. Like, we had to do that at the start. We didn't do that at the start. We did it eventually, and we got some joy out of it. Stephen Sherlock came on, Owen McSweeney got 2 points apiece. Very good performances from them. Sean Powter did very well as well. And then the main decision comes, and it's the main talking point of the weekend probably, and it is the penalty. Personally, I know it might be a biased view and all that, so I said it to Zayman on Nard's channel last night as well. John, I don't think it was a penalty. I think it was a free-in, personally. It
was a free-in, yeah. It was. Yeah.
I'll just paint the picture now. Brian O'Driscoll and Daniel O'Mahony are going to cut across Paul Ganey. And before anybody says about Paddy Clifford and stuff like that, John Fogarty said on Twitter that Paddy Clifford doesn't count in this facet of play. It's only Paul Ganey. It's the guy who has the ball only matters for a goal scoring opportunity. So a lot of people were saying that Paddy Clifford would eventually get the ball, but that doesn't matter in this facet of play. It's all on Paul Ganey. And honestly, does Paul Ganey have a realistic chance of getting a pass behind Martin from there? Personally, with Brian O'Driscoll and Daniel O'Mahony behind or going to cut across them, I don't think so. I personally don't think so. I don't think it's a penalty for that particular reason. And like Ciara McCarthy said it on Twitter, the editor of Southern Star, and I definitely agree with him. We have to agree to disagree in all this, but we have to all agree it's a stupid rule. And I think Aaron mentioned it on GA Fan TV as well, that like the black card for Sean Powder is punishment enough, but to give a penalty, I mean, it's.
Who was the ref again for the Cork game?
David Goff.
Oh yeah, no, it wasn't. Like it wasn't a penalty. Like, and it was outside the box, and no, it was a poor decision, lads. And coincidentally as well, when you think about it, I said this in Aaron's chatting as well last night. For the Darragh Moynihan tackle, which I said in the group chat, that was a stonewall red card, that challenge. But David Goff actually refereed the game between Galway and Tyrone a few weeks ago, and I was on this very podcast as well talking about that challenge from Frank Burns. That was given as a red card by David Goff. So why didn't Darragh Moynihan get sent off? And I go back to the point of consistency with refereeing in Gaelic games. I know they're getting a hard time at the moment, but at the same time, I think it isn't too much to ask for a bit of consistency. And a bit of consistency in, asking for decisions and things like that as well. Because for the penalty, what I noticed, David Goff went into his umpires to consult about the decision. But for the Darragh Moynihan tackle, he didn't go to his linesman, didn't even go close to him. What's that about? It's very, very poor. I think David Goff, I honestly think he's a well-respected referee, but I just think he had one of his off days on Saturday, unfortunately. And, it is what it is. But Kerry won the game at the end, and I think the shooting was the big thing for Cork. But at the same time, I just think decisions, they just didn't go Cork's way on the day, and unfortunately for Cork. And when you think about it, David Clifford at the end of the game, like as good a player as he is, for knocking the ball out for free, would that be a black card? Like that's deliberate.
You know, and these sorts of decisions, you know, they ruin the team's confidence as well. And they kind of ruin Cork's confidence in the game. And I just think it was a poor game by David Goff standards anyway, but Kerry went out with the win, and David Clifford, as we mentioned at the start of the show, was the star.
Yeah, David was. It's kind of week on week. We're kind of talking about the man. I suppose much like, I suppose maybe it's an open question, both of you lads, but like the signs are there with Kerry at the minute, and obviously like, bar David Clifford. I think one of the lads said in the group chat there on the weekend that like they are so ordinary without him, and you know he was shooting points to beat the band, and there really does look like there's a serious over reliance on the man. And you would, well, maybe Matthew from your end, I think you probably wouldn't worry about Kerry too much, but when they get inside of Croke Park, that simply won't be good enough, Mr. Hurley.
No, not at all. And when you look at David Clifford, especially in this game, at the first half, he was marshalled well by Daniel O'Mahony. And there was one incident where O'Mahony bundled him over the line, and he looked very, very frustrated. And you could see it in his face. Daniel O'Mahony kind of got into him in the first half. But then in the second half, he got the shackles off. I think someone else actually went on him in the second half. I'm not sure why John Cleary switched him in the end. But like he scores 1-3 in the second half, and Kerry scored 1-5 in the whole second half in general. Like, that is serious over-reliance. Like, 1-3. And some of the scores he was getting... I remember a score, actually, in the first half when he was struggling. It was beyond the 45. And those scores are just freaks of nature. Like, the score he got against Mayo as well. Like, you just have to look in awe and look at it. Like, Jesus, what a score that is. You know, and
it is ridiculous what he's doing. Like, but I just don't think it's going to cut the mustard for an All-Ireland, is it?
It's probably not, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Kerry are way too reliant on himself, and to a lesser extent, Sean O'Shea. Look, the stat proves it.
And Sean O'Shea has been quiet. Yeah.
110 out of 114 for Kerry on Saturday came from O'Shea and Clifford. That's astonishing. You know, and that Kerry will not get away with that in Croke Park. They won't, simply because you look at Galway with Matthew Tierney, Tom O'Callaghan, Shane Walsh, Jamie Comer. That's 4 different scores. And Robert Finnerty as well, and a few others, Peter Cook. That's about 6-7 different scores. Dublin have a load now. Colin Basquel, as Aaron mentioned previously, he's coming into form now. You look at if Conor O'Callaghan's fit, Dean Rock, Cormac Costello, like Dublin have all them scores. But for Kerry, it seems to be them 2 players only. And that's going to cut them short, in my opinion, going for an All-Ireland. And yeah, Paulie Clifford, like he scored 2 points as well, to be fair to him. Paul Ganey, yes, he won the penalty. Well, it was probably free in my opinion. But anyway, he did win the foul. But he didn't do much else in the game. Like, he didn't do a whole pile else. Like, even when they look...
We don't want to be too critical on them, but like, is it Kerry nearly have the mindset that, right, and I know this shouldn't be the way at all, but like, the nearly Kerry have the mindset, maybe Aaron, that, right, David, you just go out, and I know Paul Ganey and your Sean O'Shea's, but is it nearly just like, right, David, you wave your magic there and sure, look, hope for the best, kind of, like, I would say, okay, maybe not hope for the best, but, you know, David, go on there and just deliver first and, you know, get us the win, essentially.
Yeah, like I don't know, like, 'cause sometimes you see this sometimes, and like, and even maybe Monaghan is an example sometimes. And Conor, like, I felt like for a while there was an over reliance on Conor McManus, but then I think he picked up an injury. So then you seen Jack McCarron all of a sudden step up. It's almost like that responsibility, because the responsibility is taken away from a star player. It's almost like the responsibility then gets shared around more evenly, and it makes more players step up, in my opinion. And I feel like that's what's happening a little bit with Kerry, where too much responsibility is being placed on David Clifford. I wouldn't say by the management. I would say probably mostly by a lot of the players. I think a lot of the players, probably a lot of the attackers, probably, you know, and obviously Tony Brosnan's a young player. Like, he looked good against Clare, in fairness. Hasn't quite looked so good the last 2 games. You know, a few, like, Paddy Clifford, I suppose, is more of a creator. Sean O'Shea's gone missing at times. Paul Ganey's only come back into the side. Stephen O'Brien, like, I don't know, like, he was very good. I remember in 2019, he was decent enough in the All-Ireland final last year, but he's not. Yeah, he's had his injury problems as well. So I think there's probably more of for a lot of those players individually, they're probably sort of thinking, well, I don't need to go and win this game for Kerry because we have David Clifford here, who's, as Matthew was saying, taking chances on from outside the 45. And, you know, if you get him enough space, it doesn't matter where he is on the pitch, he can create something out of nothing. So I think there's probably a complacency maybe that's crept in.
An expectancy.
Yeah, and expectancy maybe and complacency from some Kerry players to, who probably realise that Clifford is, a bit of a god. But at the end of the day, as I suppose you lads were saying, like when it comes to Croke Park, like when it comes against a top team, like Galway, maybe a Mayo, like Mayo beat them already, like so, so.
And just the point there about Kerry's substitutions in a way. At half time, they made the substitution. Adrian Spillane went off, and one of the forwards for Kerry that day, and Rory Murphy comes on. Rory Murphy's a midfielder. Like, why are Kerry actually making these changes? And, even the players coming off the bench, as Aaron mentioned there, Stephen O'Brien, Tony Brosnan, Micheál Burns is another player that came on, and I looked at him for Dr. Crokes years ago. I thought he was an outstanding player. Really, really a player with a bundle of energy. And it's the question, why aren't they stepping up for Kerry? Paul Gain did the same. Like, and Dylan Gainey's another player for UCC and for Dingle that's excelling, but he just can't do it in a Kerry senior shirt. I just wonder, is it the fact that, and Aaron makes a very good point on this, is it the fact that they just think David will work his magic, he'll do his thing, so we don't have to perform? Maybe it's that, I'm not sure, but look, it looks bad for Kerry at the moment, and if the players keep having that attitude, it's going to have a bad effect going for the All-Ireland later on down the summer. So Kerry need to fix it up fast, or else they're not going to win the All-Ireland.
Yeah, that's the brass tacks of it, lads. We have a month to go, and there's not a whole pile of time to work on things. I know there's a break this weekend, but it is starting to get the shit or bust time, and it'll be interesting to see can them turn around the favourites. But Cork and Kerry, a 2-point win for Kerry at the weekend. Oh, how times are changing, Mr. Hurley. So we have to really happy coming away from it.
Relatively happy with the performance. I was proud of the players, but at the same time, it's kind of like the Dublin game in the league. It's kind of filtered with a bit of disappointment as well, coming out of it and thinking, crap, we could have won that game. We could have, if we were more clinical, if decisions went our way, we could have won that game. And it's too many times over the past few years with Cork against bigger teams. When you look at, I would think, Dublin League, Kerry in 2019, Kerry this year, Mayo in 2017, Tyrone in 2019 in the Super 8s. We come out of these games, we put up big performances against the bigger teams, and eventually we lose despite putting up an outstanding showing. And it's just frustrating at times, John. We need that kind of a win. And Cork fans were actually making the point to me, when was the last time, other than that fluke, let's be honest, the Mark King goal was an absolute fluke in 2020. Yeah. Other than that moment, when has Cork beaten a big team in championship football? I'm actually struggling when to find that. I think it might have been 2010 against Dublin in the semi-final. Possibly. I would think it's a big game anyway. So that's a huge gap for Cork, in fairness. So, look, we need to fix up that fast, and we need to beat the teams around us as well. Like there's a reason, actually. I know we rant about Joe Brolly and stuff like that, calling Cork awful, but at the same time, there's some sort of elements to that thinking that he's kind of right. Because when you look at the performance against Meath at the start of the year, and Meath are probably one of the worst teams in Division 2, and we put up that performance. Yeah. Clare, no, we keep losing to them teams. We can't keep losing to them. And I said on Aaron's podcast as well, sometimes you have to crawl before you can walk. We have to beat them teams first before we can, challenge the bigger teams. And another thing as well, the shooting accuracy. You look at Kerry, our team that we say probably don't have a chance for the All-Ireland because they're over-reliant on Clifford. But when you look at their shooting accuracy, 78% on Saturday. Cork was 62%. That's a huge gulf. And we need to close that gap sooner rather than later. But ultimately, I was happy with the performance from what Cork gave, but disappointed at the same time because it's a long time before the Cork footballers actually got a big scalp. Well, maybe we could get one against Mayo on the Gaelic grounds. We'll have to see in the next 2 weeks or so.
Here's hoping, I'm not you. Here's hoping we will wait and see it. And sincere apologies to all of you there when Aaron was getting up to turn off the light or close the windows to go on show. Mr. Prendergast, can you explain yourself?
Yeah, well, that's it. Look, I just have to show them off there ever so slightly. Like yours are out there, so I just have to remind people, who's the big man on the show. But yeah.
Brilliant stuff. stuff. Brilliant stuff. We'll be getting tickets to them next time, sir. And we'll run through these games. There's too many games nearly to talk about. We'll run through the Tailteann Cup action that took place Saturday in Glennon Brothers, Pierce Park. It was Cavan 225, Offaly 2-9. Great win for Cavan. Great scoreline. I think Offaly had 2 lads sent off, so that definitely didn't do them any favours. But the Cavan lads march on to the Tailteann Cup quarterfinals where we need to be. And we'll move on to Parnell Park. It was Laois 117, London 214, and then in Parnell Park once again, it was Meath 111, down 1-9. Mr. Prendergast, not the best games of football. You were at it.
Yeah, no, probably wasn't the best spectacle. Like, I think, like, in fairness, the one thing you would say about Meath is they definitely have improved defensively. That's one thing I definitely did notice. They're a lot more defensively, like, set up, like, better compared to how they were in the league. But down were very poor. Like, it's 17 wides in total. Their shooting was very awful. I think they scored 1-3 in the second half. Like, the game was there for either side to win. You know, I don't think Meath done a huge amount to actually win the match. I think they were slightly the better side. Like, they had more wants, they had a little bit more will in them. But I don't think it wasn't the great spectacle. Like, Jordan Morris, in fairness, had a very good game, like a goal and 3 points. It's a very good scores from him, in fairness. I thought he had a very good game. Jack Flynn had a good match as well. Daithí McGowan looks like a good sort of player in around the middle. But yeah, from a Meath perspective, like, look, they'll be happy with the win, but there's definitely still a lot of work to do for Meath. Like, I don't know, like, you'd look at Cavan probably as the favourites, not to get you too excited, John, but I think it would be the favourites at the moment. And to be honest with you, I don't know if I really see any other team that comes close to you. Like,
Maybe Meath. There was glimpses there on Saturday of that Meath performance. I thought they looked okay. Like, I think Meath at this minute in time, I think Meath are biggest challengers, and of course
the potential is there with Meath, I suppose. In fairness, like, and if they can get to a semi-final, which you'd probably imagine they will. Like, it's in Croke Park then, and you know, Meath fans will bring the noise, and the fans will get behind the team and everything else. So they might, who knows, you know.
Meath inside of Croke Park, big man, you'll be there.
Maybe, yeah. I might have to take a track down if see how the Dubs are where we are in the All Ireland. You know, not made of money. Like, can't go to every game, but we'll see. We'll see what we can do.
They should be getting you in for free, big man. You should have box seats at Croke Park at this stage. We will move on to Park Queef. It was Tipperary 17 points, Waterford 113. Mr. Hurley, you're so close.
Jesus, yeah. No, you just want Waterford to win it, and I thought I'd get it right this time, but unfortunately I didn't. It's almost like at this point I predict Waterford to beat Tipperary. It's almost like you repeatedly, stick your hand into something, and it repeatedly ends up terribly, and it's ended up terribly again. And
we're close though, close enough, but I was kind of disappointed the Waterford players. I was at the last 20 minutes of this game. I was kind of hoping the Waterford players would go for goal, just to prove me right, and just so Ethan Fitzgerald would, get a win under his belt. But no, I just want the best for Waterford footballers, because I actually have distant relatives from Waterford, so it's kind of one county that I actually want to do well in Gaelic football, but they don't seem to, over the last few years, like they're probably the worst county in the country anyway. Probably London are probably a worse team than them. But that was a huge opportunity to win a game, but they didn't. And ultimately, both sides are out of the Tailteann Cup, which is kind of anticlimactic when you look at the scenes at the end of the game at Páirc Uí Chaoimh on Saturday. It was kind of disappointing for both sides. It's only June as well. Yeah, both teams are gone. I suppose Tipperary probably wanted the season to end fairly swiftly, but it's unfortunate. But just before we get on to the All Ireland action that took place on Sunday, lads, them games, like some of them games at the weekend. I know there was a few pundits talking last week about the importance of a lot of them games, lads, and so many dead rubber games. It's I don't know. It's like more grey hairs every time you talk about this stuff, Mr. Prendergast.
Yeah, with the way the groups are structured, like, they're probably not dead rubbers as such, because there is still a lot of meaning, but there's still a lot to play for with some teams going for second or third. But I suppose there's maybe not a huge amount of jeopardy really, like, because at the end of the day, it's like, only 5 teams going out of the Tailteann Cup at the weekend in a group of 16 teams, and then obviously in the All Ireland series, 16 teams and 4 teams go out. So it's it's one of them where it's like it's actually harder for teams nearly to get knocked out than actually progress. So it's like a lot of the games aren't dead rubbers, but at the same time, it's like even when Mayo beat Kerry a couple of weeks ago, you're like, oh, that's a great win for Mayo. But it doesn't actually mean a whole, like it means they'll go into the All-Ireland quarter final. But if Mayo then say, slip up in an All-Ireland quarter final, then all of a sudden that result against Kerry is just meaningless. So it's one of them. We won't really know probably until the season ends.
Yeah, perfect stuff. And then we'll move on to action that took place on Sunday in Ballybuffet. It was Derry 3-14, Donegal 1-15. Talk going into this game that Donegal could have potentially caused an upset. They played very well, I have to say. Oisin Gallen, man of the match with 8 points. Always a good day out for himself. Great performance by Oisin, but just couldn't get over this Derry juggernaut. Derry continue on into the All-Ireland series. And it was a good win for the Mr. Prendergast.
Yeah, it was. It was a great result, obviously, for Derry. I suppose with the fact that they were able to get, 3 goals, obviously on the score sheet, which I think was huge from a Derry perspective. Like their wing backs, the likes of McGrogan, Conor Doherty, both getting goals. I think was huge for them. But fair play to Donegal. Like it was probably one of their, as you said, arguably their best performance of the season. And I remember even saying on my own show leading up that I did have a sneaky feeling about Donegal for this game, just at home in Ballybuffet. It's a local rivalry. The history between these two sides last year in the Ulster final, and like Donegal, like the thing about Donegal, although they were beaten by Down and they've had a very poor season, it's not like they ever had bad players. This is the same team that were that nearly won 3 Ulsters in a row before Cavan obviously beat them. They've been getting to Ulster semi-finals, Ulster finals. They are a good team. They do have good players. I think there was just probably a lot maybe that went on behind the scenes with management, Michael Murphy leaving, Paddy McBrearty's injury.
Yeah.
Gallen's obviously been in and out with injury. But they do have good players. Like Kieran Thompson's a good player. Caleb McGonigal in midfield. Sean Patton, is one of the best keepers in the country, especially in terms of distribution. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what Donegal it'd be hard for them probably to get anything from Monaghan. Wouldn't be inconceivable, but from a Donegal perspective, they can take a lot of positives now, and they will probably have a preliminary game, depending on who they're playing. So Donegal can take confidence, and who knows, maybe they could even reach an All-Ireland quarter final.
They've definitely turned things around in recent weeks. It's great to see, obviously, like a proud footballing county like Donegal is and the players that they have. But that was a very, very good performance against Derry at the weekend, albeit they did concede 3 goals. But I think they can hold their heads high after that particular game. And then we'll move on to Dr. Hyde Park. It was Roscommon 1-21, Sligo 1-11. Good 10-point win for Roscommon and David Burke. They'll be delighted with that, especially at home. And then in Hastings McHale Park, it was Mayo 14 points, Loud 110. Mr. Hurley, 1 point win for Mayo. A serious effort by the Loud lads. A lot of people were kind of saying park the bus, get the men behind the ball, Mickey Hart style football. But if they can push a Mayo team like that, it seems to be working.
It does, and when you push Mayo fans' buttons, it seems to be working as well. I've seen a load of reaction from Mayo fans on social media, and they're pretty angry about it. They're not lying down at all, and it might be the same as what James Horner was saying on the Irish Examiner podcast. He might be making excuses and things like that, saying, the game is bad only because of Loud, but Mayo made some mistakes in fairness to them. But Loud, in fairness to them, they're a sticky team, aren't they? They get stuck in, they make it hard for the opposition. And in the first half, when Mayo went 3 points to 0 up, I thought they were going to cruise home to victory. But Loud, they stuck in there. Samuel Roy didn't have his best game. But still, when you look at Loud, Kieran Downey, Leonard Gray had that goal chance in the second half. And if that goes in, Mayo are in huge trouble, I have to say. And eventually, Conor McKeever gets the goal. And there was a moment, Loud fans on the TV and watching on the TV particularly thought that they equalised, and they were jumping all over the place, only to realise it was a consolation score. And Darren Maloney gave them a bit of false hope on our team.
Oh, yeah, point. Yeah.
I'll cross this over to Aaron, actually, because he made an interesting point to me yesterday that the scoreboard was wrong. and the Mayo scoreboard was wrong, and they said 14 points to 111. So, Aaron, do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, like, well, that's what I was hearing, like, just from having a look on Twitter and a few other stuff. Now, I don't know if that was 100% confirmed, but even Darren Maloney, like, he did say, like, that was literally his words. He was like, I was looking up at the scoreboard. They have it wrong here. And like, it would make sense, because why were Louth going for the point? Like, they needed a goal. Do you know what I mean? Like, we played 6 minutes of injury time. I know, like, people were saying, oh, they should have allowed Louth to have the last play, but we played 6 minutes. Like, and the referee did allow one attack, and Louth just chose to go to the point. Like, you can't just keep playing on just to allow another, give a team as many chances as they want. Like, they played 6 minutes. It was 5 minutes of injury time. So yeah, it was I don't know, it was an interesting one. Like, I don't know, like, what happened there, to be honest with you. But again, like, I haven't heard much outrage from Louth fans or the Louth team.
I've heard nothing from it, Jeff.
Like, maybe that wasn't the case, you know.
Maybe not. Yeah, like, if it was the case, Jesus, like, Louth.
Yeah.
Louth have been through enough. Holy God.
Yeah, they have, in fairness.
Holy moly, Peter Fitzpatrick would have been in the wars if something was to come from that. And then in the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship round 2 in Clonus, it was Monaghan 123, Clare 118. Mr. Hurley, I think this was the game of the championship. Jack McCarron, man of the match, great game.
I think it was quite refreshing when you mentioned, actually, John, that the quality of games haven't been the best at this particular moment in time, and you've mentioned all through the weeks, but this game proved, like, if you go full pelt, you definitely produce a very good game of football. You have some very good performances. Jack McCarron scoring 8 points for play, which was absolutely brilliant. What a performance from him. And even the goal scoring in this game, like, Clare's goal was very, very lucky from Darbo Hannon, but Monaghan, they recovered. The Conor McCarthy goal, if anybody didn't see it in the Sunday game, like, you should watch it. What a cracking goal that was, like, into the top corner. What a finish from McCarthy there. And it sent Monaghan on their way to win it. Like, they have some very good players, Monaghan and Micheál Bannigan, Conor McCarthy, obviously. Conor McManus I think he was on the bench in this game for this as well. So it kind of proves that Monaghan are kind of moving on without him. So they're a dangerous team, Monaghan. When you look at the All-Ireland series this season, Carl O'Connell, another good performance from him, Stephen O'Hanlon, Gary Mohan. So Monaghan performed excellent. Clare, they've had a good enough championship campaign, beat Cork, beat Limerick. But ultimately, they are out of the All-Ireland, and I just wonder, yes, they performed very well in this game, scoring 118, but I just wonder, would they be better off at the Tailteann Cup? And if they were in the Tailteann Cup, they probably would have won it, and it would have been a trophy for Colin Collins at the end of the season, which would have been a brilliant achievement for Clare. But ultimately, they chose the Sam Maguire route, and they're the first team out of it. So I don't know what Clare fans would choose at this stage, but it's kind of easy in hindsight just to say it now.
Don't know if we've lost our host there, have we? Our host has gone missing. I don't know. Maybe if you mentioned Monaghan and Clare, and I don't know, because it's Monaghan, maybe he just doesn't want to give Monaghan the credit. Just left.
Up.
Yeah.
Salty cabin, man. Jeez.
Yeah. Typical. Doesn't want to give Monaghan the credit they deserve. Shocking.
Shame. Absolute shame.
Yeah.
Oh.
Brilliant. Sorry, lads. Bit of a technical glitch. You can hear me okay? All good?
All good. Yeah, we were just saying there. Probably because we were talking about Monaghan, you decided, no, I can't deal with this. Like, I need to go off, do my own thing. Like,
oh man, fed up here. Once I start talking with Monaghan, they put the blink on me, put the jinx. But in fair, as I was saying there, just before the connection dropped on me, probably or Cavan, I don't know what's happening up this neck of the woods tonight, but it was a great game of football, lads. And obviously Jack McCarron, eyes the needle. He had such a good game, kicked some lovely scores. Conor McManus came on, flung a few balls about. Monaghan are moving well, lads, after a shaky start to the year, Mr. Prendergast.
Yeah, no, they are. In fairness, look, it was a good win. Like, in fairness to Monaghan, like although they maybe had a few shaky results early on, I thought they always kind of played quite well. Like, there has been an element of consistency under Vinnie Corey this year. Getting the win against Tyrone was obviously huge. Like the fact they're introducing new players like Ryan O'Toole, and they're getting the best out of Jack McCarron and Conor McCarthy, Conor McManus, even when he's not starting, like he wasn't against Derry, still at a, they're still doing as well. So no, I think Monaghan are going well, and look, I'd be interested to see where that game against Donegal is played. I think it's a neutral stadium, so be interesting to see sort of what happens there. But Monaghan are going strong.
Yeah, no, they absolutely are peaking at the right time. It'll be interesting to see. Obviously, Conor McManus, kind of referenced before, lads. I don't know, is there a whole pile of juice left in Hankston? He's persistent hip injuries, and I suppose keep him fit, you always have a chance. And the former Jack McCarron, and I suppose the former of Jack McCarron inside the likes of Croke Park, and I know Croke Park is probably where you find all the great players. But where could this maybe Monaghan season end? What are we thinking, lads? Where's the ceiling for these lads, Mr. Hardy?
I would think semi-finals. You look at the players they have at the moment, like Jack McCarron, Conor McManus coming out the bench. You have Ryan O'Toole there. You still have the experienced lads like Kieran Hughes is still involved in the panel. Darren Hughes, like Carl O'Connell. Darmah McInerney, he's another good young player coming through. And I wonder as well, David Garland was one of the top scorers of the Tailteann Cup. Where's he gone?
Yeah. But don't think he ever played for Monaghan or senior, did he? Has he? I don't think. Has he?
I don't think he has. And it's probably just testament to the amount of good talent that Monaghan have. Like Conor McCarthy, Barry Moran, Jack McCarron, Conor McManus. Like McManus can't get in the team. So what chances Garland have at the same time? So yeah, it just shows that Monaghan's talent, their pool is absolutely incredible. And for a small county, like I think it's 32,000 that they have as a population, which is absolutely outstanding. And they're definitely maximising their resources to play GA. And they're doing and to play GA, I emphasise that because they won the Laurie Mar Cup in hurling as well over the weekend. So Monaghan GA is definitely going through the roof at the moment. And it's credit to the Monaghan players. I can see Aaron's reaction there.
Oh Lord, I seen some GA pundit done like the rise of Monaghan GA in football. Like, do we know who he is, lads? Or
oh, he's standing right here. I had to. I just fancied. I just woke up one day and it was like Monaghan. Yeah, Monaghan. What about Monaghan? Let's tell Monaghan's story. Why not? Let's give them a bit of credit. They deserve it. They probably don't get much, so we might as well send something their way.
Oh Lord above, yeah. I'll not thank you for that, Mr. I love your channel, but that
we'll do one about Cavan. Don't worry, it will happen.
It'll be very short. It'll be very short and sweet. It will be very short and sweet with success we've had. Great stuff, lads. Great stuff. I will move on to the Tailteann Cup action that took place on Sunday in Laois Highmore Park. It was Carlow 2-13, Longford 1-14, and then at Parnell Park. Parnell Park was well used over the weekend, I have to say. It was Wexford 1-16, Leitrim 1-12. Perfect. And then in boxes, Athletic Grounds, it was Antrim 3-13, Fermanagh 1-12. And then in Laois Highmore Park, it was Wicklow 2-14, Limerick 1-10. Lads, a lot of games and lots of actions. What was the general thoughts on so many games, Mr. Matthew Hurley?
Yeah, it was interesting games in three of them that you mentioned there, John, except for Limerick and Wicklow. Limerick were already through, Wicklow were already out, and it was kind of a game where teams could just play players out of position or anything like that. They test out a few players and things like that. And Wicklow won the game out. So Oisin McConville will be going to his pundit chair. Absolutely delighted with that showing anyway. The other Tailteann Cup games, it's a disappointing season for Leitrim, and I'd take out of it. Like, ever since the New York game, that team has just capitulated. Like, you'd have to feel sorry. Like, I know you'd be critical of Andy Moran and the way he set up the Leitrim team, but I loved Andy Moran as a player. Like, you'd feel sorry for him at the same time, like losing 4 games in the championship after such a promising start to the season in Division 4, and it's just ended like this. So I think Andy Moran he'll probably be showing the door after this season, to be honest. And if he's not showing the door, he'll probably walk. Unfortunately for Leitrim and for Andy Moran, I think
he does it 2 years though, doesn't he? He's next year, and then that's it. I think, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, but that's same.
But based on what's happened, but based on what has happened, you expect him to probably walk or get shown the door, maybe.
Yeah, I'd expect it anyway. Like, especially after the New York performance, the reaction from the Leitrim fans went on Twitter, which I think it kind of had an effect on the players as well in the Tailteann Cup campaign. Like 3 months, you know,
yeah.
And it definitely did. Like, when you think about it, Wexford, Antrim, they're two sorts of games that Leitrim would have been winning in years gone by, and they just flattered us to see even both of those games. And Wexford looked kind of comfortable in Parallel Park, so it looks worrying for Leitrim at the moment. And it's a tough time being a Leitrim fan at the moment. And it looked so promising at the start of the season with Keith Byrne being top scorer in the whole National League, but unfortunately for them, it's fallen to pieces.
Yeah, I think can't really disagree with any of that, Mr. Hurley. It's just unfortunate for the Leitrim lads, especially obviously Andy Moran. Great player, but unfortunately managing life seemed to be quite difficult for him at the minute. It'd be interesting to see, does he do another year with the Leitrim lads? I know he's another year to do after this, but don't know. It'll be interesting to see, does he find the juice is worth squeezing. And then we'll move on to this weekend action. That's just Tailteann Cup to look forward to this weekend. Obviously, the All-Ireland Series is taking a break this weekend, and next weekend we'll be back. So on Saturday, you have Down against Longford in Uri at 7 p.m. Of course, the game will be live on GA Go. Mr. Prendergast, tighter maybe than people expect, or Down at a canter?
Yeah, it's hard to know, like, because Down were very poor the last day, but you know, if they're at it and if they turn up, they're more than capable of beating Longford. It was a bit of a setback for Longford as well against Carlow. Like, again, in fairness, you have to give credit, a lot of credit to Carlow. Like, it was a great result. But I would edge towards Down. I think Down do have the better players. In the likes of Pat Haver and Oran Murdoch, obviously coming up from the under-20s. With Longford, like, just think, unfortunately, like, Longford is a small enough county. They've probably done very well to get the best out of what they had. It probably hasn't really kicked for Paddy Christie this year. We'll see obviously what happens going into next year. So yeah, I'd fancy Louth or Down, maybe not by much, probably 4 or 5 points maybe.
Yeah, perfect stuff. And then we'll move on to Fermanagh against Laois in Brewster Park, and the game will be live on 6 p.m. Which is, I remember this fixture, lads. I think that Sean Quigley was playing. I think it was back in 2015, and I think he openly admitted he had like a pizza before the game, and he kicked 2-8, 2-12 or something the next day. So I'll have what he's having, Mr. Hurley.
He probably just ordered the Domino's again before the game, and it's just a good luck charm at the same time. So yeah, Mr. Quigley, go ahead and order your pizza. You might win the game again this time. So yeah, fair play. Anyway, but Fermanagh look probably the better team to win this game. Like, Antrim just had to run of them last Sunday, unfortunately, from a Fermanagh point of view, and that got them into second place. They were kind of on the back foot after the draw against Wexford, but when you look at the players Fermanagh have, in Olton Kelm, obviously Mr. Quigley himself, Sean McNally in goal is a very good player. Shay Cullen at full back. Like, Fermanagh have some very good players, and unfortunately for Laois, look, after the Cavan game, I thought Laois performed pretty well with Mark Barry and Evan O'Carroll up front, and they seem to be turning a corner. But then they draw against Offaly after being 6 points up with 5 minutes to go, and then they draw against London, who couldn't buy a win for love nor money. So it doesn't look good for Laois or Billy Sheehan at the moment. So you'd have to expect a Fermanagh win by probably, hazard a guess and say 8 points.
Yeah, there we go. We'll wait and see. Of course, that game's not going to be on GA Go this weekend, so we'll be following the updates on Twitter. And then, big one here, lads. Carlow against New York in Netwatch Cullen Park, 5 p.m. Of course, the game will be live on GA Go. Mr. Prendergast, can New York stream keep going?
I mean, look, New York probably have a good chance here, in fairness. Like, when you actually look at the talented players that they have in Shane Carty.
And some of the New York lads in Carlow as well, that'll be brilliant.
yeah, I'd say they'll have a great night. Carlow's actually a great town. I was there before.
Never been.
Had a night out there before. It's a good enough town, good crack there, in fairness, good lad.
Don't know about the quality of football with Carlow, so I've never been, so says you.
yeah, we're just there for the pubs, we weren't actually there for the football match that was on. But yeah, no, look, I think Carlow obviously at home, like, coming in with a huge amount of momentum, obviously having beaten Longford. I think he would fancy Carlow. Like, it is tough for New York, like, sort of making the New York lads obviously making that trip over. Although they're getting quite used to it now, in fairness. And look, I mean, in fairness, like, Leitrim played done better in Division 4 than Carlow had done, but you would say, like, Leitrim have obviously regressed. Carlow have definitely improved ever so slightly. So I think Carlow will be too strong for New York, but I don't think by much. I think only by 2 or 3 points. I think New York are going to give a good game of this. And even a New York win here wouldn't entirely surprise me.
Yeah, be interesting to see. That's a good game to look forward to this weekend. It'll be good to see the New York lads in action once again. And then with the last game of the weekend, lads, it's Offaly against Wexford in Glennisk O'Connor Park at 4 p.m. It's a pity these games can't be covered just due to the fact that the Tailteann Cup's the only on this weekend. But Mr. Hurley, such is life.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of surprising that this game isn't covered in particular, because you remember last year, Wexford came up against Offaly and beat them. And that was probably one of the shocks of the championship last season. Can they repeat it again? Like, you look at Wexford, they're probably in a better position now than they were last year. With the manager they have, John Haggerty's a very good manager. He seems to buy the players a small bit. Like Darragh Brooks in goal is a very good goalkeeper and a very good booming kick on him. He got the equalising score, I think, against Fermanagh in one of the group games. Ben Brosnan is still looking as evergreen as ever. Robbie Brooks is a good forward there. So Wexford, John Taubert is another good player. So Wexford have some decent talent. But then again, Offaly, you look at the more talent they have in the team. Like, you look at Jack Bryant, like Niall McNamee's out of the team this year, but he still has players stepping up. Like Bernard Allen, I'm not sure is he going to be fit for this game. Peter Cunningham is a good player. Anton Sullivan's a very consistent player for Offaly at the moment. So, and Martin Murphy seems to be doing a good job setting the shift after the tragic loss of Liam Kearns. So, like, Offaly seem to be going along nicely. Wexford do too, but I would think Offaly will win it. But I think it'll be close. I think it'll be about maybe a goal in it, maybe 3 or 4 points.
Yeah, especially shout out to, I think I was watching your podcast, Aaron, and it was Ben Brosnan, lads. Like, and we talked with Niall McNamee there a couple of seconds ago, but Ben Brosnan's still knocking goals in, still getting important scores. Like, and God, I think I can remember Ben Brosnan from maybe it's 2011 or 2010 against the Dubs in Croke Park, and 13, 14 years later, lads, he's still going.
Yeah, he's definitely an unsung hero, probably, of Gaelic football. Like, you don't really hear his name get mentioned too much, or maybe whenever he does call it a day and retire, like, he'll get the credit he deserves. But yeah, as you said, like, I remember that 2011 Leinster final, and he played really well that day, in fairness. So yeah, no, I think it's mad to see him still going. Like, I've no idea what age he is now. It must be late 30s, maybe nearly in his 40s. But he's been going around a long time. And fair play to him, because, like, Jesus, like, playing for Wexford, like, it mustn't be easy, like, you know, that way, but fair play to him.
Yeah, Matty Ford has told us all about the trials and tribulations with the Wexford lads, and fair play. No, it's a serious credit to him, and like, even like him, your Niall McNamee's, like, there really isn't many men like that around playing for county teams these days, Mr. Hurley, because it's really a young man's game.
It's actually a shame, no, because this sort of debate actually was mentioned in the matchday programme over the weekend. I'm not sure did you see it on the matchday programme up in Parnell Park, Aaron, but it was on the Cork and Kerry programme anyway, about unsung heroes and oldish heroes. And the 2 longest serving players before Cluxton came back into contention for Dublin were actually from Monaghan, in Conor McManus and Darren Hughes. And a lot of players seem to retire, like Niall McNamee has quietly gone away. Like, Brosnan still isn't as Brosnan's gone on since 2010, I think, and then Cluxton comes back. Like, geez, Cluxton's 41 now. Cluxton's the longest serving inter-county player at the moment. Dennis McManus, and Aidan O'Shea is actually up there as well from Mayo. You might not think it, but he's up there.
Roe McKernan.
Gerald McKiernan, I'm not sure. I have to have a look at the programme.
Oh, Martin Riley. Martin Riley's been there since 06.
Martin Riley.
Yeah, Ray Galligan. Ray Galligan too, yeah.
Galligan, actually, I don't think Galligan got mentioned. I have to check this match program again. I'm just
They're
doing a badness.
well, you've been getting too much credit, so we'll leave them out for a few weeks. We're on to the next one.
Too much credit, too much slack. Holy moly! But I'm sorry, Matthew. Before Aaron rudely interrupted you there.
I was just talking about the players. I was running off the names. I kept thinking, Aidan O'Shea was one of them. Martin Riley, Conor McManus, Darren Hughes. Brosnan, I'm sure, was mentioned too. I'm sure it was. I have to have a look at it again. Jesus, I'm trying to. Maybe Galligan was mentioned. I'm so sorry, lads. I didn't bring it onto the podcast now, but
for God's sake.
Jesus, no research done. Like Jesus.
Oh, yeah. You're doing too much work, Matthew. That's your problem. There's too much on your mind. But that's it, lads. That is it. That's Tailteann Cup to look forward to this weekend. Of course, Tailteann Cup preliminary quarterfinal. So as Aaron said, it's harder to get knocked out of this competition than to progress in it. So that's where we're at. A couple of All-Ireland minor quarterfinals this weekend as well. You have Mayo against Monaghan, you have Derry against Galway, Kerry against Kildare, and Dublin and Cork. Mr. Hurley, good few fixtures there to look forward to. All games, of course, are live on Sport, TG Car as well.
Yeah, and I'll probably be heading off to the Cork and Dublin game. I don't know, but any Dublin fan head down. But I've been following the Cork Miners for a while now. Disappointed defeat to Kerry on Friday night, but just the goals killed them. And they have some very, very tidy players, actually, Cork. Watch out for number 11 on the day, Darragh Sheedy. He's an excellent player, very technically gifted. And a guy from my club, actually, Timothy Culnan, he's number 10 on the team. Very good player. He scored 3 points against Kerry. So I would say, and Frank Hurley from O'Donovan Ross at full back. So I'd suggest to watch those players very, very closely at 1 o'clock on Saturday. And who knows, they might even beat Dublin on Saturday. And I'd imagine Aaron would be crying in his room after Cork beat the Dubs.
He'll be hungover, that man. He'll be out Friday night.
Yeah, probably. Won't know the result of the game until Monday, probably. Wake up. But no, actually, look, we have to give Cork their day. You know, we have to give them their moment. But no, in fairness, like, it's good to see Dublin back there as well. Like, I think like, obviously Kildare and Meath had probably had the run us at minor level there for a good couple of years, so it was good, obviously, to beat them. But no, look, I'm confident enough. In fairness, like, probably haven't seen a huge amount of Cork at minor level really to know what they'll offer. But been impressed with the Dublin lads. Like Lenny Cahill looks like a good player. Noah Byrne I've been impressed with as well. So hoping for a win, and look, it'd be great to see Dublin do something at minor level and make use of all the resources that we have.
What about your county minors day? County minor day, Aaron? Did they ever lift off your any stories to tell us?
No. Retired nice and young. Called it a day, so I wouldn't have to. I didn't want to steal any records or anything of any nature. So retired young and sailed nicely into the GEA podcaster world.
Nice, I like to hear it. What about yourself, Mr. Hurley? Are you still playing any football, or how are you fixed?
No, at the moment, no. I took a break from football in the leaving cert year, and coincidentally, my leaving cert year was COVID. So, okay. Pretty much a long break from football after that, but get involved with the club doing statistics for them anyway. So, yeah, I'm still involved with the club now and again and stuff like that, and I meet people in the club anyway. And I'm involved with a bit of the club scene down in West Cork as well. So, still involved, but I don't know, will I throw on the boots in the next few years? Probably. The first game I'm back, probably I'll pull a hamstring, John, so I probably wouldn't take that risk.
Yeah, you'd get tempted to come back sometimes, but
Junior B, lads. Yeah. Junior B, telling you.
Yeah.
Junior D.
Yeah, that's more like it. Junior, there should be like a team for podcasters. That'd be good crack. Podcast.
A bit of
podcaster all Ireland.
Oh yeah, put us up against Armagh or something. Get our heads bait in or something. Be good crack.
The JMac podcast against off the ball, Paddy Andrews. The only chance we'll ever get to play them, Croke Park. Huh?
Jesus, yeah, that'd be. Should that be a bit of crack? Why not?
Yeah, the prison officers or the lads in Mountjoy could do it last week. Why can't we? That's it, lads. To wrap up, I know we don't have a whole pile of games this weekend. We've 4 games to look forward to. But Mr. Hurley, bet of the weekend, player to watch.
Jesus, bet of the weekend, I'd probably go New York to beat Carlo. And player to watch, Ultan Killen for Fermanagh. He hasn't hit light so far in the championship, and I think he might do on Saturday against the poor enough Laois team.
Perfect. Wise words from the wise man, Mr. Prendergast.
Yeah, I think bet of the week. I think maybe Wexford to beat Offaly, I think would maybe be an upset. I think it's definitely on the cards when you look at the trajectory of both teams this year. And maybe player of the week, Darragh Foley of Carlow, I think has looked very good. And in fairness, it's going to be an interesting one, the Carlow New York game, because it's probably one of the rare games where Carlow are hot favourites. They're probably nearly every game I feel like they play their underdogs. So I feel like Darragh Foley, experienced player, was there through the Carlow Rising days, and he's going to steer his team to the victory and win player of the week.
Brilliant stuff, lads. Well, look forward to the Tailteann Cup games this weekend. Of course, 2 games live in GA Go, and then the other games obviously be following them on Twitter. All them games on Saturday. And then you have the Munster hurling final on Sunday, then the Leinster hurling final on Sunday as well, lads. It's coming near the end for the GA action, lads, so we really have to cash in and enjoy these next few weekends, enjoy the weeks, because it's hard to believe it's nearly all over for another year. Mad to think where the time's going. Lads, thanks a million for joining me this week. And of course, the podcast is brought to you by yourgarage.com. Use the code JMac podcast to get 15% off on the website. Mr. Prendergast, thank you very much from GA Fan TV. GA Statsman Matthew Hurley, thank you very much. Cheers, lads.